the medications just kept going up and up, and the pain control was less and less. Medication is one area for treatment of chronic pain, but I felt a lot of areas that where you can self-manage weren't being explored for these patients at all.
Are you fueling your pain? The shocking link between nutrition and chronic pain relief. That's why we have Julianne Meade on the show today. Julianne is a past nurse who now is a holistic health coach and nutrition specialist. So she's got amazing experience, and she's talking about three main topics today about chronic pain, how it can be managed, relying on with self-care, get on off medications. So I think super important. Talk a lot about inflammation, right? And the source of that inflammation, and then how you can manage that through, guess what? Nutrition. That's that link I mentioned at the beginning. And then just some simple lifestyle changes you can make to help you with both pain and chronic fatigue. One of the things we did do a special session on fatigue. So if you need some energy and learn how to deal with your fatigue, Julianne has some great tips for you. So here we go. Let's dive in. Hey, it's Rob from the I Am Pain Free podcast. And how are you? I'm so excited. Today we have Julianne Meade with us today. And Julianne is coming all the way from over the pond. So we're super excited that she is here and going to be sharing a lot of wisdom with us. So Julianne, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me on, Rob. I'm really excited about the conversation today.
Good. It's fun. I love your accents, and so it's a pleasure
to
have you here, and it's going to be a fun conversation. But based on your background, you've got an amazing experience, and you're really helping people in a significant way. So why don't you just, if you don't mind, give us a quick background of what you're doing, and then how did you get there?
How did I get to this point? Yeah, that's a really great question. Journeys. Yeah, a really great question. I suppose I became a general nurse close to 8 years ago now. And when I qualified as a nurse, everybody in my class was specialising in something. Everybody wanted to be a specialist nurse. And at the time, I didn't feel like there was a specialist area that really stood out to me and that I wanted to focus in on, until I was working in orthopedic trauma. So all your broken bones, spinal injuries, car accidents. And I came across the pain team because we had so many people that had chronic pain conditions coming back in. And repeatedly what I noticed from the pain team was that it was getting increasingly harder to wean people down off analgesic meds from surgeries. So they're all started post-surgery, post-big accidents, and the medications just kept going up and up, and the pain control was less and less. And the chronic pain just developed, mixed modes of pain, considering that some of them had muscular or deep tissue pain alongside nerve pain, very hard to treat, and more medications.
So interesting about that is how many people get addicted to those pain medications during that process. Because I've had a number of associates or people that I know relatively close to me who are passing away because they get addicted to pain medications and they just can't get off of it. Being addicted to opioids, for example, is just so hard on the human psyche and the body, and it's tragic. And so that's one of the reasons why we started this podcast. I was like, let's help people reduce their pain naturally and faithfully until they can do it and get off of those nasty prescription medications, just because it's, like you said, it's just an evolving cycle, and then you end up getting worse pain and you take more medication and worse pain and more medication, and it's a brutal cycle. So it's really interesting that you saw that firsthand. So I love talking to people like you because it's fun that you've seen it.
Yeah. And it really opened my eyes to that medication is one area for treatment of chronic pain, but I felt a lot of areas that where you can self-manage weren't being explored for these patients at all. It was just straight back to more and more medication. So I suppose then I evolved to Barbells and Babies as an online fitness and nutrition coach.
No.
I did so much research and so much through my pain course on anti-inflammatory approaches to nutrition. And I found that really interesting to control systemic inflammation in the body and how that can impact chronic pain, even acute pain, and then pain during pregnancy and postpartum. So that's a little bit of a backstory how I ended up here.
Nice. So you started as a nurse 8 years ago, and then how long? What was the progression to starting this coaching business that you're doing now?
Yeah, so I'm 3 years a coach now this year. Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah, it's been a journey in itself, but a very rewarding one. And I do the fact that from a coaching perspective, you're looking at a person from a holistic view, like their lifestyle, the changes that they can make themselves, managing chronic pain, managing acute pain, small, simple shifts within your own life to just reduce the impact that pain has on your body and the perception that it has towards you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Because I love the fact that you talked about inflammation, right? Because I've talked to a number of doctors and they say inflammation is the source of all disease. Like not just one disease, but all disease. So it's like, holy smokes. So inflammation is like really key. And if you can figure out ways to reduce inflammation in a person's body, it can not only help them with pain, right? Like you're talking about, but it could help them prevent a lot of other really significant health issues. So I find that just fascinating in respect that, man, we should all be really cognizant of inflammation within our bodies. And most people don't realize that they're inflamed. And I think it's important. So one of the things you mentioned was nutrition, right? So you're helping people with inflammation via the self-care. So let's dive into that for a minute. How do you help people from a self-care perspective with inflammation?
As you said, like inflammation in general is so systemic within the whole body. And nutrition is just one element of what you can look at for self-care. Like when you're trying to reduce inflammation in the body, you're looking at absolutely everything that affects you. And that's not just your nutrition, but your environment, how you cope with stress, how your body copes with stress, and how you can reduce that as well. A huge one at the moment that I'm noticing with postpartum women is sleep, because such a lack of sleep, as it is expected postpartum that your sleep is going to be a little bit lower. It seems to just rise inflammation in the body. You're not getting the same amount of recovery time. You're not getting the same amount of rest, and you want to keep it as low as possible. Equally, the type of exercise is something that I work with females quite a lot on. A lot of women are very keen to introduce hard hitting, high intensity exercise because they feel it's such a release of stress. But when your body is already inflamed and there is some systemic inflammation, what you would be considering is exercise that reduces inflammation. So that is more moderate intensity. So sometimes it's walking instead of running, strength and resistance training instead of high intensity. But you're also looking for that balance within it, that it's exercise that challenges the body, but that doesn't push you further into inflammation.
Really interesting, because I have a background of being a runner, and I used to get really mad when people called me a jogger, right? Because I didn't want to be a jogger. I was a runner, right? So it's so hard for me to have that mentality of walking. But now getting older and learning all the things that I'm learning, like you just said, walking is an incredible exercise that is so low impact. that it really still gives you the benefits of exercise, but doesn't give you, like you mentioned, maybe more inflammation because your body's already inflamed. And if you can just walk, it's a low impact thing that's really healthy for your body, which is hard for some of us that are hard drivers, right? We're like, oh yeah, we need to go do a workout.
It really is. And it's something that I struggle with myself, to not push harder. But when your body is already in a state of chronic stress or chronic inflammation, exercise like running, just like you said, you would rather run than jog. Sometimes that's just adding more inflammation into the body. It's increasing your inflammatory markers to the point where your body just feels like, I am just constantly under attack here. There's nothing leaving me to rest at all. And that's where your nutrition comes in as well. Like, an anti-inflammatory approach to nutrition is something that I would say I loosely follow, because I'm very conscious that every individual has their own eating habits that they like and that they don't like. So I wouldn't say I'm very rigid with an approach to nutrition, but looking at everybody's diet, no matter what country you're living in, we eat so much processed food now.
Oh my gosh. I just heard a stat in the United States, like 70% of our food is ultra processed food.
Ultra processed.
It's like, how do you avoid it? It's like everywhere. It's really hard. I'd love you to continue. Don't let me interrupt you. So,
you're okay.
This is important.
The ultra processed food at the minute is such a buzzword, I feel. Yeah. And everybody's trying to reduce the amount of processed food they eat. Personally, I feel like if you can choose some sort of healthier alternative for a food that you usually eat that is highly processed, and have a little bit more moderation in your diet, it makes a huge difference to the inflammation within the body.
What are some examples of the things that you ask people to try to do instead of what they are doing? What are some?
So a big one would be switching away from not having enough colour in your diet of fruit and veg, of natural products. Okay. So a tip I usually give clients is that at each meal you have a protein source that you can visibly see on your plate, so that it's not ultra processed. You have 2 forms of colour, and then you have a carb. And if you structure every plate during the day with that picture in your head, your food tends to become less processed and tends to become quite a clean diet. Especially I feel when you focus on the colour. And that's something that I prefer to focus on with clients, instead of saying you can't have a chocolate bar or you can't have the food that you like that probably is ultra processed, but looking at the meals that you can control. So even if it's 3 meals across 4 days a week that look like that, with extra colour, with your protein source and with your carbs, it generally begins to look less processed.
Got it. Yeah, I like it. So at least you're getting people to start thinking about that, and then they start eating less ultra processed foods and more whole foods. And a lot of those whole foods have the nutrients in them that the ultra processed foods don't. So then you get people the right nutrients. And I always say that God gave us an incredibly complex body and an incredible body that heals itself if we give it the right nutrients, right? So you have to feed the body with the right things. And man, he just designed this machine of ours. It's so incredibly cool and complex. But if it doesn't have the right nutrients, it's not going to operate the way that he designed it, right?
Exactly like you said, our bodies are literally the best well-oiled machines if we look after them. Just like you would go and service your car and look after it every few months, it is the exact same with your body. If you can treat it just with a little bit of care and consistency, more than trying to be absolutely perfect with it.
Right.
Just like a car, it runs on the road. So the road might not always be the smoothest road, but you do your best to take care. And that's a very similar approach to your overall lifestyle. If we are somewhat conscious when it comes to the choices that we make, and specifically around chronic pain, if you're in that category and you're struggling with it at the moment, if you just take care on the days that you can control with your nutrition, with your movement, with your recovery time and your fatigue, it makes it a lot easier to manage long term.
Makes sense. One of the things you mentioned a few minutes ago that I'd like to go back to was the importance of sleep, right? Because I think that is amazing in the respect that that's where your body's rest and that's where your body heals, is when you are getting that sleep. So sleep deprivation is a problem. And so, how do you help people, one, recognize that, and then two, what do you recommend people to fix it?
I will openly say, Rob, sleep is the hardest thing that I have ever had to work with anybody on, whether it's chronic pain, acute pain, or female that is pregnant or postpartum.
Really? Sleep is the hardest, huh?
Oh, the hardest thing. Because
that's amazing.
No matter how much I tell somebody to sleep a little bit more or aim for an earlier bedtime, that seems to be the most difficult habit to break. We are creatures of habit.
Yes.
So if you get used to going to bed later, something that I notice quite commonly with chronic pain patients, especially if it's lower body pain, I would notice that with lower body pain, a lot of individuals are actually afraid to sleep for prolonged periods of time in case that's actually what's flaring their pain. Lying down longer. A little bit of fear develops there as well. So you're looking at ways that you can maximize the quality of sleep. And again, part of that comes through nutrition. Part of it comes through a wind down routine. And that has been the most difficult, I find, for women. The wind down routine, going to bed, that the screen time is reduced, that you do something else other than looking at screens,
right?
That your final meal is at least 1 hour before you go to bed. And especially when you're trying to move away from ultra processed food and an anti-inflammatory diet, it can be so beneficial to even just have an hour to 90 minutes before you go to bed with no food for your digestive system. So I would openly say that aiming for sleep is so important, because postpartum sleep is very broken. And that's where I notice, I definitely do notice that women tend to need the anti-inflammatory diet just to manage the inflammation better, because the sleep is something that we can't actually control that much. And the same with chronic pain, when you're trying to move away from a lot of analgesics and higher dose opioids, you're coming down off them, your sleep can be disrupted. It's not as deep sleep. You're looking at ways that you can basically boost it through your diet for anti-inflammatory, and also reduce caffeine during the day as well, so that you tend to be more sleepy and you're not relying on things like cocodamol or morphine-based tablets. When you're going to bed, they can naturally make you drowsy. You take them away and you just start to feel quite hyper, quite a lot more awake. It's a hard juggle. I would say that sleep before 12 and before midnight is going to be worth a lot more to you for your deep cycle sleep. And when it comes to pain, that's going to be the hardest time to get the pain under control to bridge you past midnight.
Makes sense. Makes really good sense. What about when you're talking about nutrition and trying to get people to reduce inflammation? What are the things, or what are some of the tips and tricks that you can do to help people with nutrition and inflammation?
Yeah.
So you
So
mentioned I think we went down that path and we started on ultra processed foods, and then I took you off into a tangent. So let's finish that one real quick.
yeah. So anti-inflammatory, what I would usually focus on is your whole foods, your fruit, your veg, your whole grains, and that your protein sources are from an animal base, which is something that others may contradict when it comes to anti-inflammatory. But in my experience, I feel a lot of individuals need an animal based protein source for the extra additions that are in that, like your nitrogen is one of them that you won't simply get from a plant based protein source. I do see a lot of people gravitate towards plant based protein because our meat is more processed now. So it's such a hard juggle to know. Another one is some of the smaller things that people can add into their diet. So hugely two ones that I focus on as like a spice variation that you can add to meals is cinnamon and turmeric. And you will have seen supplements for turmeric to boost bone health and bone density. The anti-inflammatory properties in turmeric is it's a really compound spice to add to things.
Right.
So turmeric is one I encourage everybody to add to curries, to one pot dishes, chilies, as much as you can add it in to your food. And cinnamon is one that I encourage people to add instead of sugar.
Very good. So still gives them a little sweet taste, but not sugar. I like that.
Yeah. And I suppose your very basic dairy products is something that I do include because you essentially do need calcium, and you need calcium as you age. But where possible, you're looking at very simple sources of dairy. So Greek yogurt is one that I would include, possibly cheese to a very small degree, because again, cheese is higher processed, and it is a product that nowadays we're not actually sure how much cheese is in anything.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I feel that's a product that a lot of people even notice inflammation and congestion within the body with dairy products. I think too much of anything is really not going to be good for your system. But I definitely think people still need a certain amount of dairy in their diet. And a lot of the time, when you're looking at anti-inflammatory, you are thinking the Greek yogurt base, your basic milk is a lot easier to include and less congesting on the system.
Makes really good sense. So let's chat about fatigue for a few minutes. That's one of the things I'm really fascinated with, and I'm really digging into learning a lot about is how do we help people get some energy? I see people just so much today that are using coffee, which I still love coffee, but at the same point, these energy drinks, man, that our kids are using, and then just I think a lot of adults are using them just by the nature of how popular those drinks are and that they are becoming. They're really bad for your health. So it's like, how do we help people with fatigue?
So fatigue is a big one. And just what you mentioned there about caffeine, sometimes fatigue, we get stuck in this cycle of we are feeling so tired, we boost with caffeine, and then you have the crash and the burn, basically, with caffeine. You're getting huge spikes in energy, in your blood sugar coming up, and then it crashes just as hard. So when it comes to fatigue and recovery, one of the big things that I would be looking at, in a sense, from nutrition point of view, is stabilizing your blood sugar is number one, because if that remains more stable, you will find your energy level actually remains more stable throughout the day, and it's not relying on caffeine to bring it up and then burn again. Equally, what I mentioned about the basics is something that I think we do forget about fatigue recovery. Your basic movement every day, your basic sleep patterns, and also what I view from recovery point of view is not neglecting the basic recoveries. I think nowadays we're all so focused on what else can we do? What else can we actually add to our schedule?
Like this, right? Gotta go. Right?
Oh, I need to recover and I'm so tired. So what I will do is I will sign up to go to something else. I will go to a sauna. I will use heat, but it can't be a hot water bottle at home because that wouldn't be good enough. So we're always chasing the next big thing that adds another thing to your list. And even from a mental point of view, it's not giving you a chance to recover. It's not giving you a chance to actually decompress and manage fatigue. And I think a huge thing with females is that a lot of the time we push through fatigue, and in general, people in today's society push through fatigue. Like, we feel tired, but you still have to get up, you still have to go to work, and then your nighttime becomes your window of time for yourself. So you're sitting up later and then you're just fueling with energy drinks and coffee. Yeah. So number one, I would say, is reducing the coffee in your afternoon time. First few days are going to be rough. They're not nice when you first start. And caffeine essentially is another very readily used and available drug that we do use. Yeah. Has its benefits. Like, it does have its benefits for sure, for training, for being at your best performance, for staying sharp. But if you're using that, just like your analgesics, if you're using that 4, 5, 6 times a day in large quantities, the effect starts to wear off. It stops working and you just experience the crash and burn. Right. Like, it's just essentially a roller coaster for fatigue. So another element that you can look at is the mental rest. And I think that's very important to mention, because when we're focused on all these different things that we're going to go and do for recovery time and speeding up recovery as much as possible, feeling more energized, it's actually having the opposite effect, because you're not giving yourself that mental rest. So the screen time, just like with sleep, is something that keeps you from having a mental rest, having a day where you just decompress. And I do feel that is something that works really well with females, and I call it taking a mental health day or a reset day.
I like it.
And it does very much relieve the pressure, I feel, on females that they have to go and do something. I generally suggest you go and do nothing. You just go and do whatever you feel like doing on that day. If it's you just lie on the sofa all day and watch TV, that to me is going to give you more beneficial for recovery and for fatigue and rest than saying I'm going to go and visit my nearest acupuncturist because I'm so tired, right. Which I hear a lot as well. So,
like you said, they're chasing the next thing that's going to help them instead of just relaxing and having some mental recovery.
Yeah. And I can't even agree with you more, Rob, when you speak about fatigue and recovery, because I would say maybe 20, 30 years ago, if somebody had chronic fatigue, we would consider it as, okay, we need to combat this by actually moving more, doing some light exercise in between that. And when chronic fatigue comes into it, it's very individual. You will have people that I would suggest even getting some movement in throughout the earlier portion of the day will boost your energy levels and I suppose somewhat reduce the chronic fatigue throughout the day. And early exercise is something that I think works really well for females. That it's first thing in the morning, your cortisol is already naturally starting to rise a little bit, so the energy level can be higher, and working with that instead of against it.
I like it. That makes a lot of sense. So It's been amazing. I would love to have you spend a few minutes on your business. So tell us more about how people can work with you and what are you doing to help these women that you've been talking about. It's awesome.
Thank you. At the moment, I am working fully online with individuals. They just contact me either through my website or through my Instagram page. That's Barbells and Babies. They can see a full breakdown of how I work with individuals and females within the community at the moment. It is quite a large community of women, and I'm very proud of it so far and how it's built, and how I suppose there's something suitable for each individual. But what I do pride myself on is the fact that the way I structure programs for females still remains very individual and very customized. I think that comes back from the pain management side of things, where to me, each individual's lifestyle is very individual. So you need an approach suited for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So the great thing about what you've done, you've taken all of the education and learnings that you did through your early years, and then you've customized it and tailored it to the people that you're serving. So the solutions
pretty much
that you help create is just amazing, right? It's really neat.
Thank you.
What you've done to put that together. So I will make sure that we have your website in the show notes and your Instagram page. Perfect. Why don't you say what they are real quick, just so people can, if they want to hear them.
It's barbellsandbabies.ie, and then Instagram is at barbellsandbabies, and you will see my face pop up there.
Awesome.
As soon as you type that in.
Very good. That's a unique name. I'm glad you got that one. That's awesome. So what a pleasure to have you. Thank you for being on the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience before we sign off?
No, I don't think so. Obviously, if anyone ever has any questions after hearing today's episode about their own pain or their own lifestyle, just please feel free to send me a message anytime, because I do chat to a lot of people in messages, and I'm always happy to help.
Awesome. God bless you. Thank you so much for being on the I Am Pain Free podcast.
Thanks very much, Rob, for having me. Thank you.
You bet. Signing off for today. As many of you know, my focus at the I Am Pain Free podcast is help as many people get pain-free as possible. And we strive to use all natural and alternative therapies to accomplish that goal. Well, today I'm thrilled to introduce to you a revolutionary product that aligns perfectly with our mission of natural health and well-being. It's called Exodus by Exodus Strong. At Exodus Strong, their mission is to help you break free from the grip of big pharma and embrace natural solutions that promote vibrant health. With a foundation rooted in the wisdom of the Bible, the all-natural supplement harnesses the power of 7 key ingredients specifically mentioned in the scriptures. The flagship product Exodus is designed to be transformational, providing benefits such as energy enhancement, stress relief, blood sugar stabilization, pain relief, and anti-inflammation. So join the movement, right, to help them get 1 million new people to read the Bible every day and transform their health naturally. When you purchase Exodus, use code IAPF at checkout to receive a special free gift with your order. It's time to exit the old you and step into a new chapter of vitality and well-being. To get there, you go to exodusstrong.com. So it's Exodus, EXODUS, and check out and use that IAPF for the I Am Pain Free podcast. And then you'll experience the benefits of the Exodus mineral blend. This mineral blend is amazing. It's got the molecular hydrogen generating formula that's backed by hundreds of scientific studies. So begin your journey feeling great and looking great. Don't miss the opportunity to take control of your health with the all natural way. So go check it out. I think you'll really enjoy it.